Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole.
Yeah.
You ready?
Be fun. Yeah. We already started, you know. All right. Today we got Cliff Sabo. Did, 22 years. Retired a year and a half ago now?
Yeah, it was March 24th of last year, 2023.
That's right. Did 6 deployments, 2 Iraq, 2 Afghanistan, 2 to the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Yeah.
And a couple cool shore duties. And did you have time, did you come in EOD? Or do you have a fleet?
I got a story that I never told anybody that I think's good for this venue. So like a lot of guys know that my father was EOD, so I grew up in the community. And so my dad, I'll go into him a little bit. So first he was an air traffic controller when he joined the Navy in the early 80s. And then he was actually stationed in Gitmo in Guantanamo. Okay. And he fell in love with diving. And so I think he ran into some of the frogs and he ran into some of the EOD guys. And he just loved diving so much that he went into EOD. And so he went to 2 Chuck school and then EOD school. And so, you know, after that, his first duty station was PI. Okay. Right? I'm not sure what it was then. I think it was Det Subic Bay, or if he started at San Miguel. I remember we lived at both, but I don't know exactly. Then after that, I think he went to first class dive school, and then he was at NEDU. And then we went to Rota. He was at Det Rota, and then Mobile Unit 2. Pretty sure that was the order. You know, he retired out of Mobile Unit 2 in 99 out of Virginia Beach. And then I, you know, graduated high school there. And then I joined the Navy in 2001 out of Pennsylvania. But I got to Mobile Unit 2 as a mud pup, you know, 3 years later. Okay. But how I came in, I actually was talking with my dad about it, and I actually came in under the SEAL Challenge program to go to BUDS. And so I went to boot camp, and then I went to Gunner's Mate A School. And so here I am, you know, seaman apprentice, because I got promoted in boot camp, no big deal.
Nice.
And I see this Master Chief walking through the hallway with the EOD crab on. And I was like, hey, Master Chief, I'm Cliff Sabo. Do you know my dad, Joe Sabo? And he's like, yeah, you're Joe's boy? And they were having the SEAG meeting. And this is 2001 at Great Lakes. And the Gunner's Mate, the big glass cube, which I heard that's no longer there anymore. And they're like, yeah, get in here. And so I think a couple Master Chiefs, I can't remember all their names. I think Santino was in there, and a couple of guys, and they're like, what's your dad doing? And they started shooting the shit with me. And they're like, let's call him up. And so they put him on the conference call just to start fucking with him, right? Hey, who the fuck is this? He's like, it's Joe. Who the fuck is this, right? And so they start talking, hey, Joe, it's Jim Brooks. You know, I got your boy in here. And they're like, so when are you going to EOD school, right? And then I could hear my dad over the conference mic. He's like, why don't you tell him? And I was like, actually, I got orders to BUDS. And they're like, the fuck you do? A week later, I had EOD school orders.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm super happy that my whole career was EOD. Yeah. You know, I did a couple pumps with the frogs. God bless them. Those dudes are gone so much, and doing that workup cycle nonstop. I mean, it's good to go through once or twice, but you know, my hat's off to those dudes doing it nonstop. I'm super happy that I wanted to EOD.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, why, with your dad being EOD, why did you want to go originally? Why'd you get a SEAL contract first?
I don't even know, honestly. Just remember that old school SEAL poster? It was like the dudes coming out of the water with the boonie hat, and you had like the sea air land pictures. I don't know. Yeah. I couldn't tell you. It's just a lot of guys wanted to be one. Mm-hmm. You know. But no, I'm super happy.
Nice. Yeah, and then so you went, if you came in, what, you said 2001?
Yeah, February 2001. slipping on black ice up in Great Lakes. All I remember about that place is marching to chow and then marching back and just freezing my ass off.
Yeah. Good old Great Lake. So by the time you were in EOD school then, so if you came in 2001, you went to Gunner's Mate school, how long was that?
I think wasn't boot camp like 2 months, and then I'm pretty sure Gunner's Mate school was 4 months.
Okay.
And then I was a mud pup, so they sent me to Mobile Unit 2.
Okay.
So I didn't go to dive school until February 2002.
Yeah.
And so, my mud pup, that was a great time. We were under Doc Parra and Josh Harsh and
Doc Parra.
As far as the mud pups there, it was me, Buddy Lee, Matt Blackburn, nice. Harvey.
Yeah.
Scott Dayton was there. It was a good time. I liked being a mud pup.
Yeah.
They broke me for sure. George, Greg Barnes, he was there. He was a bigger EOD guy, Cajun guy. He could run like the wind. Yeah. Rob McHugh. There was a bunch of EOD guys just beating the shit out of me. Greg Barnes would be like, Sabo, pull your daddy out of your pocket. I had a little G.I. Joe. So whenever I went in the lean and rest, I had to put my G.I. Joe in the lean and rest too.
That's so awesome.
Oh, Greg Barnes.
So you were PSIing when 9/11 happened then.
Yeah.
How interesting perspective. I can imagine that you got to see how everybody was before, and then when everybody started going, and then it became like, now you were like, okay, we're going as you're getting ready to go to school. Was there like...
So I remember it. I was in the hallway, and there was a TV. You know how groups got the long passageway?
Yep.
And then there's the two. One goes to the quarterdeck, and one goes to the of that other back stairwell.
Yeah.
There used to be a TV in that front corner, and I remember there was this other guy, Alamano, who was my dad's generation when he was still there, and like the TV was on, and 9/11 was happening. And I remember him saying, man, a plane just fell into the tower. And I truly didn't understand what was going on at the time. I don't think any of us realized until, how real it got. But it really didn't get too real for me until EOD school, was then, because I was in EOD school, and then we invaded Iraq, and I would graduate, 2 months later.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know, that's got to be interesting to like be.
I did see, I know what you're saying, like perspective of, how they did demo and how they did IED, TTPs, and a lot of it was, what they learned from the IRA and UK and the IRA and stuff like that, or what they learned from the Israelis. But it wasn't until we really came into our own, until we started to have boots on the ground.
Right.
And then the training from my first platoon, Double Deuce, Mobile Unit 2 to Det 2, when we went through 2-2 that first time, it was pretty still old school. They really didn't bring back a bunch of the TTPs from Iraq yet.
Yeah.
And then, the Chris Cherry tools just hit the street, and that was the new hotness. But like, just imagine how many new explosive tools and X-rays and disruptors and things in the last 20 years, or the robots,
Right.
I had that very first version of the Talon.
Yeah.
When we were in Baghdad in 2005 to what it is now. It's just like, it's upgraded heavily, Yeah,
even when I went through school in 07, 08, like it was pretty much just the first version of the Talon. Like it was, I think IEDs had like one of them.
That takes me back to EOD school. It was like, see a clock, shoot a clock.
Yes.
What? We were still using the J-Rod.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think we might have got pan before we left, but I'm pretty sure we still had the X-ray that looked, the Mark 32 that looked like the Ghostbuster trap, the blue one, right? And then it was J-Rod. We were testing on J-Rod.
Nice.
It was legit. I'm sad I never got my hands on one of those.
Yeah.
I got some other things. for my EOD bar one day, but never got my hands on a J-rod.
Nice. Yeah, that's...
But honestly, that wasn't my generation.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we got to the mobile unit, we were using the pan.
Yep. So, your first deployments were Iraq, and then went to Afghanistan. Was there anything that you want to share on those times, or because I know like when we had talked before, the interesting perspective, right? Like a lot of guys did the Iraq, Afghanistan stuff, and there's a lot that is from that time, but you got to do some pretty cool stuff at the Shoredets too. So
yeah, I will say my first deployment to Baghdad, we were just a mobility platoon, and we were just doing 9-line IEDs. So fireman status, like here's the grid, here's the location, here's where the security dude is, NCOIC. And we did a bunch of IEDs. Like, I think the platoon as a whole, it was over 300, and like at least a dozen car bombs.
Dang.
And that was when they just invented some of the boot banger tools and stuff like that, or the Big Mike. You ever see that?
The Big Mike, no.
Think of the omnidirectional disruptor, but it's a 5-gallon.
Oh, yeah?
And every time we use it, just the VBIT's higher order. We're like, all right, this thing looks awesome, but it's not doing what we need it to do.
Yeah.
And then I do got a legit story that I will tell.
All right.
So we got there, we were in country a month or two, and we were at FOB Falcon, which was at Route Irish, and I was with Slade Scott. Love that dude. And so the Army EOD dudes were taking heavies. They were getting killed left and right. And so like as soon as we got there, like I said, a month after, they like had a whatever that Army battalion was, EOD battalion was, like safety stand down, and they like sucked all their forces. And so Slade and I went down to this place like an hour, 2 hours south. Like Tampa comes up from Kuwait, and then Irish goes north. We were at this place called Muhammadiyah, and this FOB was run by some Marine reservists. And so, like our security, like when we did security 9 lines with the Army, like they're like, oh God, we got to babysit the EOD guys. Like, just it was their turds, honestly. Yeah. We had we did have a group of guys that eventually like we got real close and we were real tight with them. But when we got to Muhammadiyah, they gave us, here's your sergeant, E5. He's got 19 other Marines, and you got 4 gun trucks. We're like, hell yeah.
That's awesome.
So Sergeant Kruger, right? So anyways, we're going out to this 9-line response. Meet up the other Marines that were out patrolling. They're like, yeah. So we saw this dude. He saw us. He started running. So we chased him down. We're like, you're Al Qaeda, you're Taliban. And he's like, no, mister. He's like, I'll point it out to you. And so there was this mud bridge. It was like this farming area. There was this mud bridge, right, that was massive, and the irrigation canal. I mean, it was probably as deep as this room. If this room was a canal going this way, it's like, these things are dug over hundreds of years, you know. And so what they did is they were big on the daisy chains. Yep. So the guy pointed to some pink decor coming out the side of this mud bridge. And we're like, okay, so there's probably some projos under here somewhere. And so we bust out the Scheibel, and we're find 2 piles, and like we're like, all right, we're gonna do it. And we're like kind of thinking about, we're like, let's back up a little more, back up a little bit, because everything was subjective, a little bit. So we're like, let's back up a little bit more. We're up armored Humvee. And so we kick off one of the piles, we put some C4 on it, and it daisy chained to another one that higher ordered, and then it daisy chained to another one where the nose wells just low ordered and popped them open. But it would have been, if we wouldn't have moved, it would have been pretty close to us. Yeah. So the decor was coming out, and there was like this shitty little Haji canoe, right, that had some car batteries in there, right? And so it didn't have any firing mechanism. So we were thinking, the car batteries for longer soak time for it to sit there for longer targets of opportunity.
Yeah.
So Sergeant Kruger is like, hey, Chief, what do you want to do with this canoe? And like, serious heart attack. Slade's like, let's get some Marines on each side of the canal, and we'll push it downstream. We'll throw grenades at it.
Yes, dude.
He was like, are you serious? I was like, hell yeah, I'm serious.
That's legit.
So we push this canoe down the stream, and like dudes are throwing grenades at this thing, and they're just splashing in the water like depth charges, and like Slade, like 3 Marines miss, and Slade just nails this thing, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, oh shit, and jumps down, this thing cracks open like a World War II footage or something like that. And so then on the way back, we're get another IED call on the way back to the FOB. They're like, all right, what is it? And they're like, all right, well, this cordon set, they got Marines on the far side, and they're like, they think they saw wires coming out of this dead sheep carcass or something. So Kruger's like coming over, and Slade's like, give me the binoculars. He's like looking at it like this, and Kruger's like, what do you want to do, Chief? He's like, let's pull up the Mark 19 truck and shoot grenades at it. try to disrupt it, right? So those are like 2 of my favorite stories for that first deployment. And then you chewed it up a little bit, but not enough to tell. And so we drove down our standard charge with the robot and just blew it up. And then Kruger's like, get some Lance Corporals down there, pull that festering dead sheep off the road. But those are some of my favorite.
That's awesome.
I got pulled over a little bit to help the Iraqi interim government. The teams were a little light on their PSD element, so I went over and jumped on Ace Thrift's platoon with Brian Lawrence and Chris Reed, and they weren't there. I worked with Brian Lawrence for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a good time. And then my next deployment, we did, I jumped on Team 4, did a full workup and deployment to Fallujah. Got a bunch of DAs, but we did so much IED stuff that first deployment. And then we just weren't finding a lot of stuff doing the DAs with, every strategic advantage at night and, going
actually
out.
Surprising dudes.
Going after dudes. Yeah, there didn't find anything really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that?
No, I mean, it was exciting, but it wasn't what I really stuff. Yeah, it wasn't EOD stuff.
Yeah,
it wasn't technical.
That's a great word, because I think a lot of reasons why, like, so I came in with a BUDS contract, failed out, so I tried and didn't make it. But I think I didn't know about EOD, but when I think about the difference between the SEAL side and what they do, and then us and what we do, I got really lucky where I didn't have to go to the fleet first. I had somehow slid through the cracks and ended up going EOD.
Yeah.
And then after I worked with, the SEALs attached to them, didn't do a workup, but just attached to them while I was deployed out in Guam, and did training with them, and then like saw what those kind of missions look like versus what we do. The technical side is the thing that like is
our bread and butter, and just what you like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super cool. You roll a target, you're a couple blocks away, you sneak out, you close the doors, you're walking to the target on night vision, just green lasers everywhere, on night vision, and breaching a target, or just walking, the door's unlocked, and you're just walking in, all the dudes are in that front living room, and you just punch them in the face, flip them over while they're totally asleep, punch them in the face, flip them over, zip cuff them. God, awful. Awful.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm gonna have to answer that.
Speaking of the technical side, so after you did a couple of those deployments, you ended up doing some Det Mari time in Guam. I think that would kind of it's a great segue. I'm doing a terrible job of segueing it, but
no. So I'll tell you how I had no idea what Det Mari was.
Really?
Yeah. So Chris Reed and I, he was on Ace's team, I was on our team, and Chris always liked me because I was probably a loudmouth and a shit talker just like him.
Yeah.
Right. So Chris loved me, and so we kept in touch. And he went to Det Mary, and like I don't know, he called me one day. He's like, dude, you got to come out here to Det Mary. And I was like, he's like, yeah, we're fishing, we're doing demo. It's super legit out here. And I was like, that sounds pretty awesome. Yeah. Mike Wold, who was on my first team, he wanted me to go Det Rota. And I'm like, I mean, that's cool, but I already lived in Rota. You know, and I like fishing, and I like being in the beach, and I like demo.
Yeah.
And so I got orders to Det Marianas, and then I went out there in August 2007. I remember that. Brian Fitzgerald and Tom Spohr picking me and Christy up at the airport, and it was nighttime. We kind of cruised around Guam and went to the first place we went to, I think, was this Fujichiban. The ramen house.
Dude, that place is so good.
Oh. Me and Christy always think back about Guam. We're like, man, remember mermaids? Yeah, shit was badass. Or like, remember Jamaican Grill or like Rotary Sushi across from Club USA.
Yep.
Just like, so many restaurants in Guam. And I don't know if it's because we were just young and just in our 20s and just having fun, but like, great food and just all the travel we did.
Yeah.
And so Det Mary was pretty gnarly at the time. We'll just say Troy was the OIC at the time. I think the Det was having some issues, and they put Troy over there to kind of square it away. And then Brian Fitzgerald was there, and John Hatcher. And then they all left, but then it was really, my prime was when we had Eric Jurgis was the OIC, and then Brian Fitzgerald, and then Vindy Mongo made chief, and then it was Ian Gardner and me. And then we had like a couple augments from the mobile unit occasionally. We had Avanzia.
Yeah.
And then AKA Goddamn Jello, and then Jeff Black Guy, because he's got a hoss on him. and a couple other, Dave and Christina Franklin, and Chucky B and Dan Christensen. We had a couple augments come over there. It was a really good time, and busy. I think that during that time they were doing a lot of build up for Guam.
Mm-hmm.
I swear we were doing 3 to 5 calls a week.
Really?
Yeah. And so Ian was really good at like, you know, working on the boat and like the trucks and stuff like that. So we're like, come to find out we had, you know, funding from ComNav Mar to do all our maintenance. And so we were just sick and tired of dealing with the mobile unit maintenance department. So we're doing all that shit out in town, and just Ian like we totally decked out our Det Mary LSSV. Oh, dude, it was so legit. So all we had to do was convince the Chamorro comptrollers that we needed all this shit, and they're like, yeah, okay, no problem.
That's awesome.
Right. So we had the LSSV was lifted.
Yeah.
We had this thing, the bed would slide out with all the response tools. We got red and blue lights on it. We got winches because we were out, you know, because Guam was, for how small it was from the southern end of the island to the northern end, the topography was so changed so much. Grassy mountains into like rolling rocky clay plains, and then like stone beaches, and then sandy beaches, and then white cliffs at the north side. Yeah. It was just, there was so much cool shit on Guam. Yeah. So we were doing a lot of off-roading with the, like, because they would find,
some of it was even for work too.
Yeah. No, I'm totally for work.
Yeah, I know.
The 16-inch Projo was in a fuel farm that we had to go drive off-road to go find it.
That's awesome.
And then the boat, we had the 9-meter with the pilot house. Fucking, that thing was super decked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was running good because we were doing, the boat was the true workhorse of the platoon.
I heard you guys would do overnight trips because there'd be stuff on like Saipan or whatever, and take the boat out for a little while.
Dude, so Saipan on a good day, average sea state, it's a 6-hour run.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the boat was taking care of the boat and maintaining the boat, and, you know, putting stereos on the boat and fishing chairs and making sure the engines ran good, like, was very important to us.
Yeah.
And because we took it out of town and let a Mercury tech work on it, because, like, dude, if you break down in the middle of the Pacific, the only people out there that can save you is like one small cutter, if they're not out on patrol, because they were always trying to get rid of Chinese fishermen that were coming into the northern Marianas Islands and poaching. So I mean, the top island of the Marianas chain was Maug, which is like the submerged volcano mouth. If they were up there, they're a day or so, and then how far would we drift?
Yeah.
By then, so yeah, we would not quarterly, but almost quarterly. We would go to Saipan and do 1,000-pound demo shots.
That's awesome.
Because so had there's the retired EOD guys, John Scott and JD Robinson. They started this company called XRT, or they started this company, and then they got a contract with the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas Islands, and their police force. They made the XRT, Explosive Response Team. And so basically they trained some islanders to identify which was safe and not safe to move. And basically they gathered all the ordnance for a quarter, and they would put it in this cave near Suicide Cliffs in Saipan. And then we would load 200 pounds of C4 on the 9-meter with some fishing equipment and some beer, and drive north, hit a few fishing holes on the way up. And
that's so awesome.
And they would receive us. Sometimes we would stop in Tinian for a small shot, but most of the ordnance was on Saipan, because that's where the major battle was. After we took Saipan, I'm pretty sure then they took Tinian.
That's an interesting story, and I didn't find this out until I went through Chief Season. But part of Chief Season, I had to find somebody and interview that was a chief and interview them. Well, my mom ended up telling me that her uncle, I'll finish it. Her uncle was a chief in the Navy, and she's like, and I can't remember everything, but when he passed, his son did some stuff and found out he was the youngest chief in the Navy during World War II. In the Pacific, youngest chief in the Pacific. And he ended up being, so I talked to his son, and he was on, he was on Tinian when Saipan was being bombed, and like watched that firsthand. And then, World War II was like promotion by attrition, and that's basically how he became the youngest chief in the Pacific. Freaking crazy. But
it was really, we did some good stuff when Troy was there. Like, as soon as I got there, we got to blow down a comms tower.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It was regular. They were doing some more base expansion, and they got it approved from the engineers. And basically there was this tower, steel structure tower. And on each side, 4 sides, it had 2 support cables. And so basically all we did was standard cutting charge on 2 cables on the one side, and gravity just pulled it over to the other side. That was pretty gnarly.
That's awesome.
And then a lot of really good missions. Because the whole AO was all of Micronesia.
Right.
So Jurgis and Brian were flying around doing some meet and greets, see if they had any stuff on a couple of the outlying islands, and then, it would help. This is how you request our services, and then we would throw in a NALO, and we would get like a C-12, which is just a 12-seater like Navy Lear, not a Lear jet, but it's a 12-seater.
Yeah.
I think it's for the big wigs and the admirals to tour, and like we would just fill this thing up with C4, spear guns, and beer.
That's awesome.
And fly, and the pilots would be like, I fucking hate you guys. We did stuff on Yap, Peleliu, Ponape, Saipan, Tinian, Rhoda, Kwajalein, like some really, really legit major masterboard missions.
I know you got some stuff on the table.
So,
you want to tell any stories?
Yeah. So this is a chem horn to a Japanese Type 99 contact mine.
Yeah.
And So there was this dude, his name was Brian, I think it was Brian Green. He's a marine biologist, and he was living in Yap, right? And just doing his thing, being a scientist, and just living on the edge of, you know, civilization. And so there was this retired master diver, I forget his name, only met him once, but he started his own like underwater survey company or some shit. And so this guy, Brian, on Yap was just dove everywhere. He's just looking at everything, just diving, right? And he was diving in the channel in Yap. And the master diver was coming to do the survey, and he's like, yeah, I found this really big, weird thing, looks like a mine. And the master diver was like, all right, show me. Sure as shit, Japanese contact mine that was flooded was sitting on its side in the channel at about 110 feet. And so we got the job to go down there, and it was Tom Spoor, pretty sure it was John Hasse, and then me and Ian Gardner, and then we brought like a corpsman from the bulb unit. Yeah. And so, you know, not a lot of places to stay in Yap except the dive resort.
Tough life.
And it was called the Manta Bay Dive Resort because Yap is really well known for its manta rays, because it's a lot of sediment and the warm water. So the manta rays would come there, were there most of the time, but like there was one time of year where they were just so prevalent. So anyways, this dude who owned the manta ray, he had a brewery, and he brought this, I wouldn't call it a dhow, whatever the equivalent for an Asian dhow is, but it's a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And almost like pirate ship, if you think about it, like you have the pilot house is up, and then it's like lower levels. He towed this thing from like Indonesia and turned it into a restaurant.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's
and so
awesome.
the top, the weather deck was the bar, and then he had the restaurant, and like we would shoot fish, and they would catch and cook for us. And the beer, I forget the name of it, but they called it Manta Piss. And then like it was no rules. Like if you wanted to climb all the way up to that crow's nest and jump into the water, like he didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit whether you hit the water or whether you hit the deck. Wasn't his problem. Right? So, but anyways, that was a great time. And then so Ian and I dove down with Tom Spoor, and he was just saying, hey, you got to put this charge here, right? And then so we came back up, and then me and Gardner went down, and Gardner had the charge, and then I attached it, and then went up, cooked it off. The next day they came back, and Brian Green, the guy who found the mine originally, brought that back. And I was like, Brian, can I have that? That's like a really special thing. Like, I blew this thing up, and like I don't know how many dudes have had the opportunity to dive on a World War II contact mine. Yeah. He's like, yeah, here you go, dude.
That's awesome.
And so I've been thinking about if I want to like and get all the rust off it and get it back to its, the lead, but then I'm nervous about it getting messed up or something.
I'd just leave it like that.
And that was my birthday when I did that.
Really?
That mission.
That's pretty cool.
And then my next year, my following birthday, we raised a 16-inch Projo underwater in Kwajalein.
Yeah?
Yeah, so that was another legit-ass mission.
Did you just do scuba for that?
Yeah.
To dive on that? Okay, so it's just basically a bounce dive, quick.
Yeah.
And go.
Super quick, standard. Built it like an OP charge, but it was a contact charge,
Yeah.
And then just attached it directly to the lower part and
that's cool.
smoked it. There you go. Good man.
I've learned how to follow a lead.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming down.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is cool. I know we talked about getting together during your retirement, but as it turns out, there's like more than one thing going on during a retirement process. So I'm sure we can get into that a little later.
What else would that marry?
You said the 16-inch Projo. Was that
so? I won't get into the specifics, but basically from Kwajalein to Guam, they were going to run something underwater.
Okay.
And they marked the path coming off the island, and no shit, there's a 16-inch Projo
Right there.
right there. And so like, hey, we need you guys to get rid of this. And so there was, it's like Army USACA, I forget what the command was, but there was some divers there on the island that were contracted by the Army, and they had like an Army boat, but they weren't like EOD guys. There was an EOD, there was a EOD detached, like a 3-man EOD element there of contractors that would do, BIPs and shit, but they had no capability to do any kind of underwater stuff.
Yeah.
And so basically all we knew was it was a 16-inch Projo, it was in about 25 feet of water, and then there was no disposal range on the island for us to do that, because the disposal range, at least to what I recollect, was at the end of the runway.
Okay.
Right? And so they could only do like small 5-inch Projos or something like that. And they're like, well, we're like, all right, well, we can tow it to land and blow it. And they're like, no, you can't, because you're just going to put a bunch of FOD all over the runway. And we're like, yeah, okay. Or like, all right, well, then we'll just relocate it underwater and do an underwater disposal. And so that's what we had to figure out. And so I don't know, Brian just put me in charge of how to figure out how to do this, and I just came up with the whole idea.
That's awesome.
And so it was a nothing scary, PD fuse, base detonating as well. So it's just impact inertia,
Yeah.
And then so out front of Det Mary, so Det Mary right next door was like the ammo handler dudes for the nav mag, right? And they had 2 inert 16-inch Projos right out the front door. And I'm like, well, these are it right here, so I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do it right here. And so what I came up with is it was laying proud on the deck, but coral started to grow up around it, right? And I didn't, you never touch coral. You're like, oh, how hard is this going to be to get out?
Yeah.
But coral's like porcelain.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Just shatters basically.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, well, what do I got to do? I got to tie a sling to this, and then we got to put the lift balloon to it to raise it. I'm like, okay, well, it's 2,000 pounds and it's laying proud on the deck. How are we going to get under it? So I figured out how to tie the slings. I basically had 2 20-foot, 1-inch tubular slings, and I figured out how I was going to basically just girth hitch it, then timber hitch, and then I just made an equalizing knot. And so when we hoisted it, it was not all the way up and down. It was kind of lifted like this.
Okay, yeah.
But that was the first thing I figured out with the inert Projos that were outside the office. And I was like, all right, now the next problem to solve is how am I going to get under it? And so I dove down with a 3-ton car jack and a piece of angle iron and some sandbags. And so I just put the angle iron under the Projo, and we cranked it up, and it lifted up a little bit. We slid a sandbag under the nose, and I cranked it up a little more until I can get the jack all the way under it. And we got it sitting on 3 sandbags. So now it's, sitting like this, good enough for me to be able to put a sling around it and tie it. And so we didn't use the, we just had commercial lift bags. Okay. We didn't use the Orca, or we didn't even have that back then. We still had the Mark II, right? Mark II lift balloon.
Yep.
And so the plan was, all right, we're going to fill up these we had 2 500-pound bags and a 1,000-pound bag. We're like, all right, so we're just going to fill up these 2 500-pounder bags with the little 4-foot whoop under there with the scuba tank. Fill those up. And then we're going to put the, hook up the 1,000-pounder, right? We'll put a little air in it, and then we're going to come back off with the 100-foot whip and then turn it on so it, remotely comes up.
Yeah.
Didn't go to plan. Put some air in it, and we none of us did the fucking buoyancy calculations for 25 feet. We're like, yeah, it's 2,000 pounds. It's not fucking going anywhere, right? And sure as shit, we're filling this thing up. This motherfucker starts lifting up. Like, fuck, well, if you're wrong, say wrong. Fucking fill this thing up. And then, so we had it on the surface, and we towed it over, not too far, a couple hundred yards. We picked out this spot between, almost like if you would think of like a drainage. It was like between the reef, and it dropped down to about 100 feet.
Okay.
And there wasn't a lot of reef down there, right? We're like, all right, I mean, this spot looks pretty good. I think in hindsight, we could have taken it out to sea, and then did one of those floating bips.
Yeah.
Probably would have been the best thing, but we just didn't think of that at the time.
Yeah.
And blew it up down there. And then, so we lowered it, pulled the air out, it lowered, fell into the sand, flopped over, and then went down there and put another contact charge on it, blew it up, and then there was just fish everywhere. So then we filled up like a giant cooler full of fish.
Don't let it get a waste.
No.
That's awesome.
And gave it to the Islanders, and
Yeah.
that was a good one too.
That's pretty cool.
That was also my birthday.
Yeah. That's a pretty good birthday.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
nice. Dude, that is I've decided I'm making a big push to like emphasize that the thing that makes Navy EOD different is the special operations mindset, right? So like nothing that we do is conventional, which that story right there is exactly like bringing a car jack down with tire iron to like that is not a convention. That's not in a pub anywhere. Like you have to use an unconventional like mindset to figure that kind of stuff out. That's awesome.
There was crazy shit. Like there was like ships that sunk near Saipan. I never did one that still like depth charges were just still mounted to the deck, and they were thinking about how they're going to do this. Or there was places in Peleliu where there was just 5-inch projos that missed the island, and there was just a field of projos just sitting proud in the sand.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they went and did that job later. Peleliu. So Peleliu is where the Marines took the Japanese airfield.
Yeah.
So Peleliu, there was ordnance everywhere, right? And so like, if you just cleared 6 inches of depth, like the size of this room, you can find whether it's ammo or grenades or bulk C4, just so much shit.
Yeah.
We were actually just, the guy there, his name was Steve Ballinger. He was Australian, and his wife was from England, and they were the UXO company that got the contract. So they were doing the same thing that XRT was doing at Guam. They'd gather the shit, and then we would fly down there at the request of the embassy, to do disposal. And same thing, like Brian, or I think Eric Jurgis met him in a bar on Guam. Like they were vacationing in Guam, back to civilization.
Yeah.
And that's how we got down there. Well, anyways, he had a bunch of stuff, this little range, and there was a lot of Japanese stuff that was picric acid that we were trying some stuff on. A lot of that picric acid is that yellow stuff, and you're reading the pubs, it's super sensitive. And he had a couple of like anti-personnel landmines sitting in some transmission fluid just to desensitize them, and we had to eventually pull them out and blow them up. And then something we blew up, like just blew picric acid, the whole range was like yellow, like 50-foot diameter. Like, fuck. And so here we're thinking like, it's fucking gonna blow up, picric acid. Didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
We lit it on fire. It didn't catch, it didn't go. It was just, like a light dusting over the sand, and we just had to carry on because that was the only demo hole.
Yeah.
And dude, we were crawling through caves in Peleliu because the islanders were superstitious. There were still dead Japanese dudes in there.
Really?
Yeah, not like Indiana Jones where they're like up against the wall with the spikes or shit like that, but like, bones. Really? And there was like sake bottles and shrines. That's and crazy. Like fighting positions, but the Marines were like, fuck this, and they just bulldozed them in. Like, fuck them, we're not going in there. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude. And then so here we are. That was like one day. We were in Peleliu for like a week, just doing demo and fishing and just enjoying life. It was so awesome.
That's cool.
We were just hiking through the jungle. He's like, on the other side of the island, there's this bomb, 500-pound bomb or some shit. Maybe not 500-pounder. It was a smaller bomb, but it was just sitting at low tide. It was just sitting proud. And he's like, we gotta march through the jungle, and then we got to get there at low tide so we can do this demo shot, because then the tide will consume it and soak everything. I'm like, all right, so we're literally walking through knee-high water, and I got the 757 charge strap over my shoulder, and we're walking through the jungle, and I came across a case of TNT. And so this is, like 70 years later, and so the wooden boxes rotted away, and like the metal caps on the end of the TNT, because you got the tablets in there, that's gone. So it was basically everything rotted away except the TNT tablets.
Dude.
Like they were sitting there, from World War II, and now everything's gone, and you just see the tablets. And I'm like, I'm gonna prime into this and see if this will go. Sure as shit, 80 years, whatever, in the rain and humidity, it high ordered.
That's awesome.
With that TNT.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's legit.
And then we made it to the other side of the island. And put the charge. This is still when we were rocking the Mark 186 receiver. Hell
that was the best one.
Hell yeah, dude. So test the light bulbs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Light bulb check. Mm-hmm. Right? So we do redundant and just put 2 receivers with their own individual caps. We did redundant. When we did admin demo, we were always redundant,
Yeah.
And then we went to some kind of little resort kind of thing. There was a German family there, and I brought the little German boy. He's probably no older than my boy right now. He's 12, and I brought him between my legs and let him cook the shot off.
That's cool.
Just spoke no German. He spoke no English. I spoke no German, but he knew he was about to do some legit shit.
That's super cool.
And the mother, but she was just so excited. I was like, boy, come here. He was like, here I come. We're going to blow this up.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's got to be a cool experience. I bet that dude's telling the story right now. Like,
I felt good about that.
That's cool.
That was cool.
I know it's a long time ago in a land far away. Ian had told this story about when he was at the Det, about a projo on a it's like a gravel pit on a thing. I'm not going to tell the story. If you were there.
Well, do you know any more details about it?
So the big key on, so he told this as a learning thing, and it was make sure you have cleared everything, especially if you're like got clearance with everyone, especially if you happen to be in the flight path of landing airplanes.
So I don't think I know that particular story, but I can relate to it for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it would happen all the time. They were excavating near the runway, near the Guam International, and sure shit, they would dig out 5-inch projos. And we were doing 5-inch projos on the reg.
Yeah.
And they all required RSP, because they were cock striker, right? So I went to the airport a handful of times and did RSPs on the 5-inch projos, and it was just a little more orchestrated.
Yeah.
You would have to get a rep from the airport. You'd have to get the Guam PD, and like I'd say, okay, I need you to stop traffic. See that intersection there, and there. I need you to stop traffic there. As soon as he gives us our window, our little 20-minute window for flights. And so sure shit, they would give it to us, and we'd have everything ready, and we would walk down there with the 50 cal de-armor and take a shot.
That's so awesome.
So here it is right here. I polished it up one time. It's pretty gnarly that you can see the tick marks, the time marks on there.
Yeah.
Right, and this was the cartridge that I hit it with.
That's so cool.
None of them. I did probably a dozen 50 cal RSPs. None of them ever looked like this, and I'm like, oh, this is special.
Yeah,
I'm keeping that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You also, so when I was on island, the most publicized event, I guess you could say, was when
I got jumped by Chamorros. when me and Vinny Mongo got our shit pushed in by 7 Chamorros.
That was publicized internal to the command.
Leaving horse and cow at midnight and starting a fight. Yeah. Good call. I'll tell that one after, but
I like it. No, I was going. So when they were building the new gym on Guam, you ended up having a hand in something that they found.
So they were building the new gym in housing, and it was like right in the middle of housing. And so I don't know the name of this excavating machine, but it's the long one that has like a blade underneath, and they were like grading the parking lot. So the gym was already pretty much constructed.
That's right. Yep.
Right. And so they hit something, bing, and sure as shit, it was a 1,000-pound bomb, U.S. bomb that was nosed in. That we found a lot of ordnance because Guam is so wet and the clay.
Yeah.
Well, they dropped a shit ton of ordnance that just went right in the mud and never went. And so the OIC, and then talked into the mobile unit, which was ADCON, and talking to the region. So what they did is we found it like on a weekday, a Tuesday or Wednesday or something, and they're like, all right, we're going to do this. You guys are going to do this on Sunday or Saturday when they had enough notification to evacuate the base. But this is like straight out of OP 114, not OP, but 60 Alpha 114, fucking protection of personnel and property. Like, so we're like, all right, if we do the RSP and the bomb high orders, what's going to happen? What's worst case? They're like, okay, well, the new gym foundation is right over there, so we could crack that foundation, and they're going to have to rebuild the gym. Yeah. Okay, and I was like, all right, that's pretty bad. And then what else could happen? Like the base plate, it was angled enough, the base plate is pointed right over where the subs were docked. I'm like, well, that's probably not going to happen, but can't take that chance.
Yeah. So
no shit, we had some CBs out there, and we dug trenches all the way, 2 or 3 feet past the depth of the bomb. We got a trench dug that was like an L protecting, preventing the shock wave from going through the ground to the foundation or something. Yeah. And then we built a mound to stop the base plate from flying in that direction. And so, yeah, we did that, and then busted out the old Acme rocket wrench.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And so actually, the RSP, I don't think we got the fuse all the way out. It was just stuck in there.
Yeah.
Right? But it pulled off the cap in a way that we could see because the nose was in. Pretty sure it's one of those, it's impact inertia with the, I think it's called a creep spring, right? And there was like this big brass firing pin. And so I'm pretty sure the propeller's on thread, and then that that weight and that creep spring, is in free play. So when it gets impact inertia, it comes in, hits the primer, it hits the booster and all that shit and goes off. Yeah. We spun the cap off, but then we could see that the booster, the fuse was just wedged in there, and the firing pin, the big brass pin, was just frozen solid. Yeah. Wasn't moving. And then once we got down to the nose, there was no nose fuse in it. Okay. So we just had that one.
Nice.
And so then basically how we set it on the truck, weren't worried about it moving, but we had it oriented so that the weight was down this way. Yeah. And then we took it to the range and cooked it off the Det Mary range, which was such a legit range, Class A range, like 3,000 pound limit.
Yeah.
Right. And the mobile unit training department really liked it because, emergency disposal, you're supposed to blow everything up. Well, we had rain, so we couldn't do it. So we had generally we would have a couple pieces of ordnance, and then we would build a live cache, at the demo range, and the guys would, the soft teams would hike in, and then they would do disposal right before sunset, when you couldn't do it. Yep. And they would get to build a live shot for training. Yeah. The guys really enjoyed that.
That's super valuable. That's one thing that I was talking with A couple people today doing a conference thing at Eglin, and there's other services there. And one of the things that I think we miss is we do have ranges, but our ranges are basically just disposal ranges.
Yeah.
The other services, they're in charge of live ranges where either artillery is being dropped or bombs, missiles, whatever, and like they get a lot of that, and so they get a lot of that kind of experience and can use it. I don't know that they use it in necessarily the way that we do, like making sure that you save it and get the best training value out of it. But that's one thing that I wish we did have is like a Navy owned range like that because we would use it more in that realm and give our guys more experience. So actually giving them experience when you do have the chance is awesome.
One of the other things we did on an annual basis at the time at Det Mari was, so you got Guam, and then an hour north you got the island of Rota, and then farther north you got Tini and Saipan. And so north by northeast from Saipan, about 3 hours, is this island called FDM, Farallonde Medania.
I can never remember that actual name.
And so, well, I've been there. I have personally been there probably 7 or 8 times.
Wow.
Right? And so it's the only live bombing range in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
And so the island is like sectioned off. Like there's this, the lower portion was like HE, and then there was like a small land bridge that was no fire, can't hit it. And then there was another HE spot, and then like the northern end of the island was like no bombing or inert only, some kind of shit like that. But every year, these 2 scientists would fly in. What was his name? Steve and Don Marks. Don was a former two-chuck, and now he's a marine biologist. And then Steve went to Navy dive school. I don't know how that happened, but they were allowed to be on our dive side because they were blessed by the Navy. And so every year, and I happened to be on every trip, every year we would take these dudes up to this island, and we would just dive. So like this is how it would go. Like we would load up all our dive gear and the bower compressors and like all our sleeping kit and all that stuff, no demo or anything, just dive gear, fishing gear, bower compressors, shit ton of tanks, repair parts, repair tools, that kind of shit. And so we would drive all the way to Saipan with all that shit, and then we'd stay at the hotel, and then the next day we would meet the scientists, and we would meet the boat crew from the Micronesian, which was like a 110-foot boat, and do the crew. And so basically, we would drive the 9-meter up there, and the Micronesian, the first time I went, he had these 2 giant concrete blocks, right, with eyelets, and he had them chained together. And so basically, he was on the leeward side of the island because that's where it's nice and calm. Mm-hmm. And then we dove down, and he pushed these 2 blocks off the fantail of the Micronesian. And then we dove down there and basically set the mooring rope. And so the Micronesian, we lived for a week and ate food and charged the tanks. We had the bower compressors and all that shit on there. And so we lived off the Micronesian, and then the 9-meter was the dive vessel.
That's cool.
So we would do 2 dives in the morning. We do our deeper dives in the morning. And then we would eat lunch and take like a 2-hour break and bring up our R&T time. And then we would do 2 shallow dives in the afternoon. And then we would get done around, 4 or 5 o'clock and jam tanks. And then just have some beers, do some fishing off the side, or do some trolling around the island. And so we would do these dives, and it was just so legit, just like untouched. I mean, the dudes from Saipan would go up there and go fishing, right? But for the most part, just like untouched area. And basically, they were doing all the science, marine biology shit, and we were just telling them, don't touch the bomb. So like, dude, there was Mark 84s that were like bent by like bananas, just like everywhere, right? Eastern side had like the windward side with strong currents. So we were using underwater scooters. You know,
That's cool.
Yeah, we were using the Det Mary had 4 underwater scooters, and we're diving, and like those things were so legit. Like we dove with those things all the time. Like
That's
loved
awesome.
them, loved them. And so FDM, you know, I was lucky. I got to go every year. Right, some of the other guys just couldn't go for that reason, one or another reason. Like, I was real sad. Ian Gardner, who's my fucking best friend, didn't ever get to go.
Oh, really?
On one of those trips, he just always had something going on or something. But so, my last trip to FDM, we go up there. And we set the mooring and we stay the night one day, and like this monster storm comes in out of nowhere. And we're like, all right, I'm just a petty officer, so it's like, hey, we're bailing. I'm like, sounds good to me. Right? Dude, generally it was a 3-hour drive about from Saipan to FDM. We were in the 9 meter, we were in 20 foot swells,
Jesus.
20 foot seas. And you know, the three hour trip was like 5-6 hours.
Oh.
But thankfully it was there was a lot of time between the apex of the waves.
Okay, yeah.
So it was like dude, I swear to God, like as big as my house.
That's crazy.
In the 9 meter. And like we're like, all right, well, let's just stay close behind the Micronesian. They'll kind of chop some of it up. No, no, fuck no. And so I've never been. I wasn't nervous. Like we were out on the boat so much.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do an MCM team till after Det Mary, but like I've been in pretty shitty sea state in a small boat, and I was pretty, wasn't nervous.
Yeah.
There was one time we were coming back from Guam. Or from Rhoda, and we're coming back to Guam, and we got hit with some visibility, and so you're heading due south to Guam. Is me and Ian Gardner and Jurgis, and I forgot who else, but like we had low visibility, and then all of a sudden we lost all the pilot house power.
Oh, dude.
Right, so we're just driving, and like, we're just still driving. We got no GPS. All we got is the compass, right, and no visibility. And we're like, I don't know what happened, right? And so we're trying to fucking troubleshoot, and we're still underway. And we're like, all right, well, dude, you got to hold due south. We got 2 problems here. 1, we missed the island of Guam.
Yeah.
And we end up in the South China Sea. 2, we're heading to Guam, but we have no visibility, and we hit the reef. So we're like, all right, I'm going to go stand on the bow and just let's slow it down. And we did. We actually, it cleared up by the time we got there and saw the island, and then cruised around and got back to Janzi's, and probably had some beers and Janzi's sweet potato fries or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is not, yeah. Like, it's one thing to be off the coast of San Diego and not be able to see and be like, okay, we got to hold heading, whatever. If you're 1 degree off, you're still going to see land, and you're going to be able to find it.
Yeah, there's the beach.
If you're heading towards Guam, which is 16 miles wide at the widest part, 1 degree might not make it.
Yeah.
Dude, that's nice.
Just fucking, it was just the best 3.5 years of my life, my best 3.5 years in the Navy.
Yeah.
My wife as well, she was a new teacher, and she was teaching at the Dodea school, and we were early to mid-20s, and just it was the best time of our life for sure.
That's cool.
And the missions we were getting, and the brotherhood we had there, and how much better we made Det Mary from when we got there. It was just fucking awesome.
That is the stories that I hear from Det Mary. It is the time now version of what the old timers talk about. Like, as far as how the type of like commands, how the commands were like pretty close, but then just the like, you go work hard and then you play.
Oh yeah.
and you have a good time, you know? Like, I think the mobile unit stateside sometimes, most of the time now, it seems like it's you work hard and then you deploy and then you come back and work hard again.
It did change. Because I remember when I was at Mobile Unit 12 and I got there in beginning of 2011 when I made chief, and then through 2012 when I deployed on 1232 and my other 2 platoons it was a super tight-knit community. Like, hey, we're going to Chicks, and then like the whole group was at Chicks.
Yeah.
Like there was so much togetherness at the time, or we're going this. It's kind of comparable to Mobile Unit 5 because, I was at the shore at Mobile Unit 5 at the platoons, but like on any given night you could go to Live House or Mac and Marty's and it was fucking EOD heads.
Yep. Absolutely.
As far as you could see, and it was just like, yeah, you hear about that the overseas mobile units are tight-knit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about after the shore deck going back to the mobile units and doing some MCM stuff. Any of the MCM stuff you want to talk about?
I loved doing IEDs. I loved doing soft stuff. I super loved Det Mary, but I love doing MCM stuff too.
Yeah.
Not only is it our core competency, but like, I was really good with the IED stuff because I had a solid foundation, with Baghdad, and then I did all the UXO stuff with, Det Mary. I would definitely say I was weak in Chem Nuke.
Yeah.
But then the MCM stuff, I loved it so much because I always loved being out on the water, and I loved diving, and I loved how challenging it was to actually do an MCM mission right.
Yeah.
Right. Not only does the team got to be dialed in, but the equipment's got to be dialed in. You got to have the weather. Mm-hmm. That's like, I said it in my retirement speech. I was like, I'm going to miss early, brisk mornings on the MCM platoon.
Yeah.
While the boys are doing the boat loadout checklist and we're underway, headed to Whiskey 50 with drinking my coffee. The boys are acting like fucking assholes, drinking, listening to music.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just busting each other's balls.
Yeah.
It's like the best part of being a chief,
Yeah.
And then going out, like, my platoon with 12-4, Stephen Batane and Lee and Billy, Alex, Sheck, Eninger, Ruiz. It was just it was a great time. That's when I was a company LCPO that first time. I think Lee talked about it a little bit. And then I stepped down because they had issues with the platoon chief.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did. I don't think I was, Ryan Burton was a CMC at the time, and, he had confidence in me that I could do it, him and the ops chief. And I was in that position, and then we lost the chief, and there was nobody to replace that position. And I remember talking to Steve Fellman, and he's like, what's best for the team? And I was like, Steve, what's best for the team is for me to, step down and become the platoon chief.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I did, Can't say that I'm not, upset that I didn't make Master Chief, because I am a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? But then, just like Stephen Patane is like also one of my fucking best friends. We probably talk weekly at least.
Nice.
And just, we did a lot of stuff. You know what? You talk about that soft mindset.
Yep.
Because me and Lee was on my NAVSOF platoon.
Yep.
12-4 before we got to 12-1-2. And me and Lee never did MCM together. And we just had a fresh perspective on everything.
Yeah.
And I had a rock climbing background, so I knew a lot about knots and pulleys and all that kind of shit. And it was me and Lee, and then everybody else was a new guy. So we had like these fucking fresh molds that we could do whatever the fuck we wanted. And it turned out to a great time. Eventually Jason McCormick And then Andrew Kranak became the company leadership. But we did that trip to Bahrain. But just like, as far as our workup, like, man, we were diving. We were diving. We had so much bottom time. You know, I just don't see that level of commitment nowadays, right? With the diving and the tools and we would be diving at night. Like, hey, well, let's go fucking do this at night. I really loved when we went down to Panama City for the 3-week deal. Mm-hmm. Not as when I was a company LCPO, but when we were the platoon LCPO, because we got to try so much shit.
Right.
And minefields, and like, because you go to Whiskey 50 and it's like, all right, you're going to get these 2 mines at these 2 marks.
Yeah.
You go down there to Panama City, like, here's a field. Here's 30 marks. Yeah. I'm like, all right, let's see how many marks we can do in 8 hours. Like, just fucking go.
That's awesome.
Right? Like, you don't get that anywhere else. Like, all right, fucking, okay, we're going to hit these marks with robot. Or, like, we're looking at the field. You're like, all right, there's 3 here, so why don't we park the boat here so we can attack these 3 before we have to shift. Mm-hmm. You know, and like...
That is something that... Because a lot of the training we do is on a single mark, usually.
Yeah.
And
that's the baby steps.
It is. And the next step, and then especially for when you... like from a company mindset, is trying to figure out how to use your 2 different teams, your EOD team and then your UMS team, to go after a bunch of marks. So hey, how do I offset the EOD team so they can go after stuff? Yeah. And if something happens over here on the UMS side and that sets something off, they're not going to be screwed. And then if you're diving on stuff, like how do you get the most amount? How do you maximize your bottle time with placing potential multiple charges, so that once they go off, if we're in like if we're not trying to let everybody know exactly what we're doing and where we're doing it, like once you set stuff off, everybody knows. So like there's a lot that goes in, and I would agree that unless you take it on yourself, those kind of things aren't the norm. So that kind of training is not.
The other thing that people aren't thinking about is like, if you're gonna like hit multiple marks, you know how much demo you gotta have in the fucking in the rib?
Yeah.
You know how much of a pain in the ass it is working with the ship to build demo up?
Yep.
Right? Because like when we did, what the fuck was it? That Navy exercise, when I was a company LCPO.
The one out just off the coast here?
It was off the coast of North Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I forget what the fuck it was.
I forget where I am. LSE.
Yeah.
Yep.
LSE 21.
Very original, large-scale exercise.
So, like, hey, you know, we push this up. We'd like to build some demo charges and put them back in the mag because it takes a good amount of time. Like, we just want to combine the det cord, which is 1.1 delta, with the C4, which is 1.1 delta, and we still get 1.1 delta.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Okay, boys, fucking, I know you guys just got in your racks at 11:30, but to build up, if we're launching at 7, that's when the deck department's going to be ready, plus loadout and all that. You guys need to be up 4:30. So we have enough time in case we have any delays with, because it's not that the charge takes time to build up. It's waiting on the fucking guys that, well, I don't know who's supposed to unlock the mag. That guy's supposed to do it. We can't find him. The key's missing. Or like, hey, to fuel the fucking boats. There was just so much shit. Like, you're building demo and they're trying to fuel boats. I'm like, I'm sure there's a rule about this somewhere. We probably shouldn't do this. Go put the demo over there. Or like when we launch the boats, you know, this is more company level shit, but it's like the deck department. I mean, those are some hard working motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, you got to load the boat. Like, if it takes them 2 days to load the boat with the fork trucks and the cranes, that they're going to do it for 2 days, you know? Yeah. But like when you get to the deck department, like, hey, we want to launch here. Like, all right, well, what we got to do is we got to go at this speed and we got to set condition 1 alpha. and then the deck department can roll you guys out. And so they don't have any concept of tactics, like, okay, this is the point. So that's when they start. And then by the time they launched us that first time, we're fucking 15 nautical miles away from where we wanted to launch from. And they're just they're so slow.
Yeah.
Because with the slugger and then hooking up the chains and then disconnect the chains, and now you're going to launch the rib. Like when we went out on the Lime Bay and they just craned it over the side, dude. I was talking to this with Oscar. I was like, "No, dude." He's like, "What do you like better? You like going out the well or the cranes?" I'm like, "Cranes, hands down."
Absolutely.
Fucking, we got all 3 boats in the water in 30 minutes.
Yep.
And all 3 boats out of the water in 30 minutes.
And honestly, there's just something about working with the UK versus working with the US.
They're a little more chill.
They're more chill. They're not accepting more risk, but they understand that like things have to get done, and so they just do them.
And they got bars.
They do have multiple bars.
Dude, were you on the Lime Bay or the Cardigan Bay?
Cardi B, yeah.
Yeah, you got 4 levels of bars, right? And so you got the lower level, it's all the fucking E6 and below, and that place is hopping every night. And then you got the next one is you got like the Chiefs, and there's a couple dudes in there. Yeah. And the next one is the warrant officers, and there's like maybe 5 dudes, and then the very top one is the officers, and there's maybe one guy in there, and he's just reading a magazine.
Yeah, right.
The higher you go up, the less fun it is. Right?
Yeah.
But Platoon, LCPO, MCM, really good time. You know, couple of hair-raising moments where like you're trying to do the beach and the transition buoy out there out of Tutu.
Yeah.
And you get the Spectron line fouled in the engines. And now you're taking breakers broadside, and you're like, oh, this is bad. This is fucking bad, dude.
I've seen this on a TV show.
Right? And you fucking get out of it. You're like, woo, fuck. Right? What else? We almost sunk a 7-meter.
No kidding.
In Key West. Oh, here's a good one.
I like it.
I thought me and Stefan were going to get shit canned for sure, but K9's pretty chill. So we go to Key West for our 2 weeks of diving. And we were like, we're not pulling the 7-meter out of the fucking water every time, right? We're gonna launch it, and then when we take the break for the weekend, we'll pull it, wash it, kind of deal. And so the 7-meter had like 7-meter rib. You got the transom, and then there's this hard steel structure or aluminum structure in the back that the engines are mounted to. Mm-hmm. And so we would just park it there every night. And there's that section that's welded on the back. It's a segmented compartment and has nothing to do with the keel and the bilge pump. And so there's an air void in there, and there's these 2 black circles, and I guess those O-rings were failing, and so water over the week is just slowly filling that thing up. And so we take it out to the what was the famous, the Vandenberg, right? Yeah. The Vandenberg down in Key West, and so we're moored up, and so one of the days we pull up, and this fucking huge hammerhead shark just comes up to the boat and like circles around the boat twice, gnaws at the engines, looks at us, and then dives down. I'm like, divers, divers, suit up. Billy was like, oh, chief. Because these countries are, oh, chief, oh no, chief. I'm like, Billy, better fucking suit up. Right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. And so I don't think that was the same day, but that did happen.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I dive, and then there was like a little bit of water in the boat. I'm like, not a big deal. Right. And then the second set goes down, and then finally Stefan and Lee go down. They're like the last set. And now I'm like, I've been in a lot of boats. I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to have ankle high water in the boat. in the rib,
Oh,
right?
shit.
And I look back at the engines, right? And I see that the engines are in the water. The water is above the line where the cover
Oh, shit.
goes. And I'm like, not good. Not good. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to fucking try to click these over. Click, click, nothing. I'm like, fuck. And then so I'm like, fucking Billy's bailing. Or somebody, one of the guys are bailing with a bucket. You pull a dump out one of the clumps, start bailing with the bucket, right? And so I was like, no, just fucking open up that hatch, let it go in the bilge, and we'll just get the bilge pump. It'll pump it all out, and we'll be good. It just made shit worse, right? And so I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm gonna fucking have to do this, and I'm fucking Channel 16, like, Coast Guard, this is Navy 7-meter rib over. And they're like, go for Coast Guard. I'm like, yeah, we're tied up to the Vandenberg. We're taking on water and we have dead engines. And they're like, what is your grid? I'm like, it's this, and this. And like, all right, we'll be there in about 15 minutes. I'm like, 15 minutes? I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this dude is smoking. It's like an hour transit. Sure as shit, dude. Well, Lieutenant and Lee come up, and I'm like, Lieutenant, I called the Coast Guard. He's like, what? I'm like, sorry, sir. Checking on water. Engines are dead. Had to make an executive decision.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's like, all right, they're on the way. And sure as shit, they show up in this 30-foot jet boat. And
that's
fucking,
pretty quick.
And then like, I'm like, all right, it shows up, and it's like an E5. And I'm like, hey, buddy, Senior Chief Sabo. And he's like, yeah, Senior Chief, can you do me a favor? Just get the guys to throw their life vests on. I'm like, sure, no problem. I'm like, Lee, get everybody's life vests on. He fucking opens the thing. He's like, there's 3 life vests. I'm like, this is fucking embarrassing. I'm like, I'm like, add life vests to the fucking checklist. So the Coast Guard gives them all life vests. And the guy who's driving the boat is an E5, and I'm fucking Senior Chief. I feel like a complete dipshit. I'm like, yeah, you guys got any life vests? Right? And so
awesome.
They throw the life vests on. And so they have a water pump. And they fucking, water pump, you got to prime it to get water in there before you start it. So there's the vacuum. Mm-hmm. So they throw the hose into the fucking bilge, and they're going to suck it out. And like, one of the petty officers or one of the seamen like goes to start this thing, and instead of getting the bull handle, he gets the vacuum thing and he just rips it right out. It's like a plunger in his hand, and the E5 is like, God damn it. And so what they did is they called the other 30-foot boat that came out 15 minutes later with another water pump. We sucked the water out of the bilge, but the engines were still wet. And then they just hip-toed us all the way back to shore. And so here I am. I'm like, oh, fuck. Me and Stephen are going to get fucking fired. And the petty officers are just having a ball.
Of course.
They're in there. We got this picture, and they're all in fucking, they got the yellow fucking vest, and they're on like the, manning, they're against the rails facing, they got fucking straw hats on, and they're all cheesy, and we have this debt picture. And I'm like, yeah, enjoy it, because you're about to get a new chief. You're about to get a third chief. And we called K9 and Stephen talked to him. And he's like, all right, anybody get hurt? Is the boat back? All right, no worries.
Nice.
And I was like, fuck it.
That's good.
Legit.
That's what you need.
So I took all the Coast Guard guys out and got them all fucking rip-roaring drunk.
That's cool.
I was like, you guys, meet me tonight.
That's awesome.
See, it's on the Senior Chief tonight.
Yeah.
There's this one time I forget the fucking bar, but this guy was on stage and we're already torqued up. And the guy's like, yeah, requesting songs, and Lee kept yelling at this dude, Hall & Oates. He did like 8 times. This guy's like, I don't know who Hall & Oates is. I'm like, what? Oh, it's one of my favorite fucking. And then what did we do? We went down to we got a det picture of next to the closest point to Cuba, the little buoy looking thing. Yeah, that was a good time.
The Key West, I've actually only been to Key West once, because doing work outside of Guam, it was all San Diego, and then it was only on my on my last time through I went down to Key West, because the EOD team was nice enough to invite their company leadership. So went down and got to enjoy that. It was pretty cool.
Where are we? MCM. We're losing a lot of corporate foundational knowledge, if you will.
I would like to see us, and the community is not going this way, but I would like to see us for MCM. If we want to progress like we say we do, MCM needs to be, I think, a mobile unit needs to be dedicated to MCM.
Yeah.
And MCM needs to, they need to train on everything, but they should only be evaluated on MCM, because that's going to push the teams to do what you did and then some, which is be hyper-focused on MCM. It's a lot of stuff. It is a huge mission set that if we want to be as good as we say we do, we have to be extremely focused on and spend a lot of time doing.
Just like the comms piece from the company to the EOD platoon to the UMS platoon.
Yep.
You know, and like, you know, thank God we have bells.
Dude, lifesaver. Love that dude.
Fucking love Butters.
You got him to a good point, because I was telling him as we were getting to the end of our deployment, I was telling him, I've never had somebody, and there's been a couple EOD guys for EOD things, but I've never had somebody that I can literally just tell everybody at the group meeting, like, tomorrow we're doing these evolutions. And then I know that the TOC and the boats are going to have all the comms needed to do those evolutions. I don't have to actually go to him and be like, okay, I need HF, I need the SATCOM, I need this, he's great.
Yeah. The shit that makes me rip my hair out is asking the EOD platoon, like, okay, you can't just be bells. You got to be able to fucking do your own fucking comms. Right, like you should have a quick step, because I remember when we were in Iraq, like me and Slade, like you got to put your own crypto in, you got to program it. Singars, we never trained on it, but we got to fucking learn it, or we can't communicate. It's the same thing. It's like you should be able to, you know, at least a little troubleshoot your comms if you're having issues communicating, right? With like, I mean, I would send the EOD boat out, and we'd have HF, we'd have UHF, and we'd have, HF, VHF, and then SATCOM, still having issues communicate with them.
Yeah. I remember,
that wasn't all on them. I'm just saying,
no,
it's a constant issue. It's 2024.
Yeah.
You know, 2023, and here we are. We can't even talk to a rib on a consistent basis.
Right. No, I remember the expectation, like on my first team, on my first, second, and third team, but on my first team especially, I was the person that was in charge of comms. And the expectation at team training was I had 2 Pisky 5s, because we hadn't gone to the good stuff yet. One of them was set so that you could turn it to whatever channel you wanted. The other one was frequency hopping, monitoring both of the 3 vehicles that we would have that could go out.
Yeah.
And it would just monitor those, so whoever was in the TOC, it would stop whenever we're communicating out there, and you could turn the other one to, like, we did all our own crypto, we did all of that stuff. That, when I say we, because I was the comms dude, that was my job. I got up early and did that. But that was the expectation. If there was a comms issue, the team went to me, because that was my collateral. And I agree. It seems like it's
beneath them.
It's just not prioritized at all. And I think some of the negative is they took it out of the training unit, like that comms course.
Oh yeah.
So that becomes like, well, if it's not a priority for them, and then we have somebody to do it, then, well, I don't see the problem. And
not only that, it's like, you're getting a boat from the boat shop.
Yeah.
You open it up and there's no comms racks, and I'm like, I'm not taking this boat to LSC 21. I'll tell you fucking that right now.
Yeah.
Like, let me talk to your chief. Like, or I'm fucking taking it up the chain. Like, you guys can't give me a shit boat when we're at large scale exercise 21. Literally doing maritime EOD, launching from a fucking amphib, and just tell me I'm going to throw it in a backpack. Go fuck yourself, you know?
The best, speaking of boats sinking on you, the best quote, and I won't say it verbatim, but this will be close enough, that I had recently, is, you can't leave boats in the water. They're not made for that. We were like, I feel like they are. Otherwise it'd be like a car or something.
Who the fuck said this?
That was,
you don't have to say a name. Just give me a position.
We'll just call it the boat shop. The Infor boat shop, because a boat was left overnight and a similar thing happened. They came out in the morning expecting the boat to float like boats are supposed to. And it had started sinking as well.
You just got to keep, the lesson I learned from that is you just got to keep the bow towards the mouth of the harbor.
But, so, just comical.
Bells, me and Dougie were so happy to have bells. We were, up in the office. We were up in the office.
Yeah.
And how you have the water tanks. This is in Bahrain. The water coolers to drink water.
Oh, yep.
And so Doug was busting balls. He was like, Senior Chief, why don't we have any water? Because it was empty. I was like, sorry, Lieutenant, I'll take care of that. So I get the empty water jug. I fucking, the stairs go down into the highway. I kick the door open. I fucking see Bells, and I'm like, Bells, why the fuck don't we have any water? And threw it down the stairs, and this thing is just bouncing and loud as shit. And I was like, water's coming, Lieutenant. Oh, you just see Bells just fucking grin.
That's so great.
Oh my God. He was there with me when I fucking shattered my arm.
Dude.
In Bahrain. And
that was right at the end of deployment, wasn't it?
I think, we had another month and a half left.
Yeah. We
were doing the exercise with UAE, the Omani, not the Omani, the UAE EOD guys. Okay. So we had the weekend off, and we're at the Ritz, or I forget the name of the hotel. The only secure hotel in the.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't on us. It was the MC or the NCIS or whoever the fuck goes out and surveys it and said this is safe. So we're like, hey, you guys want to just stay by the pool and get fucked up all day? I'm like, we did that last weekend. I want to do something else. And so Danny Nolan and Bill, they went out and did this dirt biking excursion, in the desert. It was an hour away, and then you go at sunrise and you're out in the desert dirt biking. And it was legit. And they're like, so they went with the guy one time, and they're like, hey, we should go again. I'm like, yeah, I want to fucking go. And so it's Bill, Danny, me, and Bells, right? And Danny and Bill were more proficient riders.
Yeah.
And they already went with the guide previously. So, generally the guide takes you on the one path, and he puts up his hand for hazard to slow everybody down. But, he was more confident with them because he saw them ride previously. And so I assume he was feeling pushed because they were up on him, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So what happened was I fell over in the sand, right? And I was like, oh, I got to catch up with these dudes. So I pulled the bike back up, started up, and I'm fucking, wah! And I don't see anybody. And then all of a sudden, I am launching off a sand dune, doing about 35, about 15 feet up in the air, and just missile in on that front thing. And I remember hitting and hearing a snap. And I remember when it happened, I was like, I just broke my jaw or something.
Yeah.
And what it was my, my radius shattered into a fucking 7 or 8 pieces, and then my ulna snapped and ripped out. And so, the guide should have been up there, to slow us down, but they were below.
Yeah.
And so I missiled off that thing. And so I don't think I went unconscious, but like as soon as I remember opening my eyes, I'm kind of laid out like this, and I see my ulna sticking out. I'm like, God damn it, not again, because I did the same shit on the Det Mary range with the ATV. I'm like, I should sell my motorcycle right now. Right? So, anyways, like the first thing the Sri Lankan tour guide does is he comes and he fucking grabs my arm and he starts trying to like pull it back into place, and I'm like, just yelling at him. I'm like, get this fucking dude off of me. And no shit, my hand is just fucking flopping, right? And then we crash next to the only bush in the desert, and so Bill fucking Wilkinson builds a sling out of this plant where it's dried, so we put a couple of them together, make them rigid. And then his motorcycle socks. And so we tie me into a sling. That's awesome. Right? And so we're in the desert. I can't drive. I can't hop on the back of somebody's bike. It's like crazy terrain. So he calls the dude. It takes 30, 40 minutes for the Land Cruiser dude to come out to us in the desert. I hop in the Land Cruiser. Another 20 minutes back to the closest road, where they've already called the ambulance, and the ambulance is these two Filipino guys, two flips, dude. They're like, "Sir, your arm is broken." I'm like, I fucking know, dude. So two Filipinos in UAE running the ambulance. I'm like, geez, oh shit, right? And so they give me, so I'm in a sling, and then we're sitting there for another 20 minutes for him to use the cardboard sling to switch me into another sling. I'm like, why are we doing this right now? Like let's go to the fucking hospital. Yeah. And they're like, here, sir, laughing gas. And I'm breathing this laughing gas. It's like in a 10 cubic foot tank. You're like 2 breaths. And I'm like, it's empty. And I'm like, this is not working. And so then they drive us to this fucking hospital in some remote Arab town.
Yeah.
Right? And fucking, I'm an American in the military, and I'm in the emergency room, and they don't even know what to do with me. I don't even know how I can touch this guy, right? So finally, an hour or so, I got no drugs in me. The laughing gas, as shitty as it was, is starting to wear off. And finally, a doctor comes in, an Arab dude that speaks English. And he's like, all right, we'll give you some medicine. So they shoot me up, and they take me to the x-ray, and he shows me the x-ray picture, and it was like worse than any x-ray picture that we ever shot in like 05.
Yeah.
We're using 308 Polaroid film, and we're rolling it through the right. Like those pictures were better. This thing was real grainy, and he's like, yeah, you're pretty fucked up. And so all he did was like, I had a lot of torn meat here. He trimmed all that off, and then cleaned me out because I had like a tablespoon of sand in there. Yeah. And then my ulna is sticking out, and this piece, the meat is fucking underneath, and he's like, all right, this is going to hurt. So he's got the nurse holding my bicep down like this, and he's trying to flip the meat over my ulna with the hemostats, right? And like, yeah, I got narcotics in me, but I am just roaring like a dinosaur. Yeah. Right? Finally get it over. He sews me up. He bandages me up. Bells was with me. He rode with me in the ambulance, and he calls. So where am I? I'm sitting in the hospital, and I called Doug. I'm like, hey, Lieutenant. Right? Postcard. He's like, hey, Chief. So hey, what's going on? I'm like, hey, Doug, I don't want you to worry, but I'm in the hospital and my arm is broken. This is not a joke. No, I think I called him from the ambulance. I did. I'm like, Bells, give me the phone. We're going to call Doug. And he's like, all right. Okay. You know what Bells is, a little high pitch. Okay, senior. Right, so I called Doug, and I always keep it calm. I'm like, hey, Doug, what's going on? Hey, we got a little snafu out here. I crashed the bike and totally fucked my arm up, and I'm going to some random Arab hospital. So anyways, we're in like the intensive care unit or whatever. I don't even know what you want to call it. So I'm in this little bed, and the room is probably a little bit bigger than this room, and there's 4 of us in there. Yeah. Across the way, there's some guy, some really dark-skinned Arab dude, and it looks like his hand is just off. There's just like gauze, and it's just a bloody nub, and he's just looking at me like this. And I'm like, okay. And then this other guy over here, his foot's fucked up, and he's walking like every 30 minutes to go to the bathroom, and it's like just leaving a bloody trail on the floor.
Jesus.
And then this guy's on the other side of the current. He's just dying. I don't know what his condition is, but it's not good, right? And like I'm hopped up on narcotics, and the guys come in, and they're looking around, and there's ants on the floor. They're looking around, and they're like, we got to get you the fuck out of here. I'm like, what? I know there's no Wi-Fi, but I'm okay. Right? They're like, no, we're fucking breaking you out. And they tell the doctor, he's like, no, you probably need to wait. It's swelling. You should stay here. And they're like, no, like we're taking him to, they call the command calls the embassy. They're like, he needs to go to fucking the American hospital in Dubai, like now.
Yeah.
Right? So Doug breaks me out of there. We go to the American hospital. I check in. They do another x-ray, and then they get another orthopedic surgeon, but he's not a specialist. And they put this X-Fix. Remember that?
Yeah.
You probably didn't. I don't know if you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
The external fixator on my hand. And so I make it back to Bahrain, talking with the command. I'm like, well, Skipper, I'd really like to, we just monitor this. We're a month out. I'd like to finish this. I'm getting out of the Navy. Any kind of money's going to help, with this large transition coming. And so I go to the Bahrain hospital like 2 or 3 weeks later, and he CT scans me, and he's like, dude, you got to go back to America like right now. He's like, your radius has shrunk an inch, and it's grown an inch in width. So the scar tissue, he's like, you're not going to have use of that hand if you don't go back to America right now. So I was like, fuck. So I told the command, they're like, yep, well, let's get you out of here. Flew. My sister-in-law picked me up. First, I was like, Kelly, take me to the hospital, but stop at Chick-fil-A first.
Priorities.
Look at that spicy deluxe with that pepper jack. Yes. Right? So then we go to the hospital, check into the ER, and they're like, all right, come back Monday, we'll do surgery. And I'm pretty amazed at what the doctor
That's awesome.
did.
Yeah.
He did. He was like, yeah, probably 3 hours surgery. I woke up, I was like, where's the doctor? Because I fucked myself up before, and the doctor usually meets me after surgery. I'm like, where's the doctor at? She's like, well, honey, he thought it was going to be 3 hours, but it was she's like, it was like 7-hour dick dragger. He was like, he went home. He said, he'll catch up with me. I was like, well, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Right? So,
oh, dude.
And so, yeah, man. I mean, thankfully this happened because I don't think I would have got 100%.
It just sealed the deal.
It didn't seem as easy as some people said it would be.
Yeah.
You got to do your homework for sure.
Yeah. I have to take this really quick. But do you want to talk about transition? And anything on that?
We could do that.
Okay.
I'll take a piss too.
Cool.
And then how I did the most difficult transition ever. What was the last thing we were talking about?
We were talking about got to transition stuff. So because you talked about getting 100% because of your on purpose, accidental. So definitely challenging the. Everybody's going to find their own way. It's nerve-wracking for everybody, and to be nerve-wracking for you is it's just the way it is. Yeah.
You do something for 20 years, and now you're walking into the unknown. So I got to go to the Honor Foundation. I enjoyed that. I went to home base up in Boston for the head-to-toe sweep. I never went to NICO or anything like that. So I went to home base up there for, I think it was their 2-week program where they kind of give you head to toe. They figured some shit out up there. I got a few diagnoses up there. That helped for sure. But the big picture is like, you want to go to your corpsman and you're like, hey, print up all my list of shit I've been diagnosed with in the Navy.
Yeah.
Right. If you're diagnosed with it, you're pretty much going to get that disability percentage. And then you need to think about all the stuff that you're having issues with that, you don't have diagnosed. That's when you need to get looked at and get that diagnosed. So And then disabilitymadeeasy.com was a big website that I used. And basically you just need to build a 3-ring binder of all your ailments, of your broken shit. Like, hey, I had TBI, I slid the thing across at the guy's desk. He's like, okay, thank you, tell me about that. Or the most important one is like, because I saw the TBI guy. You go to optometry, audiology, and then the most important one is the head to toe sweep. Yeah. And then other guys would go to psychs, shrinks for PTSD, shit like that. But the head to toe sweep is the one where you have all your mechanical issues, your shoulder impingements and your shattered knee and all this shit. And she'd ask me, she's like, all right, tell me about this. And I would have my binder, and I'm like, I got diagnosed with that. Or if I didn't have a diagnosis, my shoulder hurts when I move it to here. They understand it's a game, honestly.
Yeah.
Not gonna blow smoke up your ass. And you just need to be. It's an important test to know the right things to say so they get annotated accurately. As far as transition, so you definitely need to start working on that. Your disability, that's the thing that's going to affect you the most the rest of your life, right? I'm still waiting on my CRCS package. Okay. Where they tie your disability to your combat. Right. And that's been almost a year since I submitted that through lawyers, LSW, Lawyers Serving Warriors. They do it pro bono, but it seems like a really slow process. Yeah. I checked like a couple months ago, and they're like, we'll contact you when it's done. I'm like, okay, I'll go fuck myself. But, so, I went into the Honor Foundation, but I was kind of already moving towards purchasing this, this franchise. Yeah. And so I kind of had an idea of what I was going to do, but, I wasn't set on it yet. And so I went through the Honor Foundation, which I thought was for somebody who doesn't have a clue what they're going to do, I thought it was very beneficial. Nice. Honestly. Yeah. As far as like, how to dress, like the first part of the Honor Foundation when they talked about your what's the word? Like what you want. What kind of job do you want? Like, okay, I want to be remote, or I want to be, in an office, or, I want to focus more on family time. Your priorities. Like, what are your priorities of your next job? Gotcha. Yeah. That really, people didn't think about that. Like, okay, well, I want to bust my ass and like promote, or I just want to chill, right? That, your why statement. I enjoyed my why statement, learning about that, and then they would take you to do mock interviews and stuff like that. I thought it was really good. And then at the end, they started doing all these networking things. Okay. And then field trips. We went to the Still factory. Yeah. In Virginia Beach, and got a tour of that and talked to some veterans there. He's like, dude, he's like, if you come to a corporation, you're like, hey, I want to fix this, do this, and they're like, yeah, fucking run with it. And he's like, it's so easy to promote because most people just want to do the bare minimum. Yeah. The problem solvers go far. So I enjoyed that, but I wouldn't think I know that my transition was probably the most difficult transition, because pretty much Christy and I sold the house in Virginia. We're like, all right, we're going to sever all ties. We're debating whether we're going to rent the house or sell it. And so we sold the house in Virginia, and Christy moved in with her sister and the kids so they could finish the school year. And I came down here with the big idea of like, okay, I'm going to start the business and buy a house and get everything ready. And so summertime they can come down to it, right? So get down here and like, yeah, that's cool. Thanks for your service. You don't have a pension yet, so that doesn't count. You don't have disability yet, so that doesn't count. Your wife's a teacher, but she don't have a job down here, so that doesn't count. Plus you got a small business loan, to start that business, and that crushes your debt to income ratio. Yeah. And so it was rough. Randall Rude let me borrow his camper. So I was living on Postal Point near the EOD underwater building.
Yeah.
You know, for like 2 months living in a camper, and I just switched to the other camper near the commissary, setting up a business, trying to find a place to rent, you know, and just fucking, it was super stressful.
That's tough.
Yeah. And still, you know, business is going well. It just takes time. We're in, I couldn't imagine how much money we'd be making if we were in a hot real estate market right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm making good money, but the bottom line and the margins are pretty tight.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of moving and there's a lot of money in moving and junk removal. And like some of the stuff that I come across, I really like it because I still got younger men that I'm training, and I got the logistics of them going out on the trucks, and like I'm bringing all my command and control and comms and logs, and now I'm applying it to something that I built.
Yeah.
But I'm super happy with the dudes I got now, and just like I got a really tight thing. I've probably gone through, including the guys I have now, 35 employees total, and we've been open 15 months.
That's a lot.
Yeah, some guys like I hired them and fired them the same day.
No kidding.
Some guys a couple days later, and some guys I got some really, really fucking good guys right now.
Nice.
You know, and I'm super happy.
That's
like,
awesome.
And now we're building a culture. Like every Wednesday morning, we'll do like a team breakfast. I bought a Blackstone with all the scrap money.
Nice.
We just got a gym in the shop. I just put up a basketball hoop. You know, it's hard work, and like doing the interviews. Oh, talk about being on this end of the table and somebody asking you for a job, and like you see just complete dirt bags, or you see fucking dudes with fucking crazy criminal records, or fucking sexual predators that want a job, or I'll have like 40-year-old burned out fucking deadbeat dudes that don't have a driver's license.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fucking no fucking way, dude. Or I've had guys that are just complete assholes, and like question number 3, and I'm like, hey, this interview's over. Good luck. You're not fucking working here.
Yeah.
You know, just. The other thing is I've seen pure desperation on the other side of the table. I had a guy that came in who was in his 50s. He was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, and then he was a physician's assistant for like 20 years, and then couldn't find a job, and he was coming to work for me, wanted a job for me, and I'm like, you realize like if I hire you, like you're going to be working with like, you know, like junior enlisted personnel, you know, apples to kind of compare it for you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a roller coaster for sure, small business ownership, and but I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some sleepless, stressful fucking nights, you know, because it's your money and your family's money, financial future on the line. You know what we got committed and invested in it. But talking to other business owners and making other connections, it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Talking to other dudes like, hey, what are you having this issue with? You know, and like being a part of a franchise, like I call the other franchise veteran, I'll call other franchise owners that I got really good relationships with, or I'll call other franchises that are veterans, and it's even tighter. And I'm like, hey dude, how did you fucking solve this?
Gotcha.
You know, it's like it's almost like a Chiefs mess, honestly.
Yeah, that's cool.
So every year they do like a training reunion thing, and there's a 3-day seminar thing down in Tampa. You go to the bar, everybody's got their name tags, and everybody that's a veteran's got veteran underneath it.
That's cool.
That the franchise does, and they're all at the bar just getting fucking tuned up. And I'm like,
yeah,
this is the place I'm supposed to be.
I'm back, baby.
This is the spot.
That's funny.
But yeah, we got 3 trucks now, and
nice.
you know, I've done some moves all the way to Indiana is probably the farthest one I've got. But like I've done some pretty big jobs, like Emerald Grand. This dude works for Emerald Grand. He's like with the VP of Special Projects or anything, or Special Projects or some high-speed name. But he's like, hey, I got this warehouse. It's just like a warehouse full of like 20 years of restaurant stuff and hotel stuff, and just full.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need you guys to clear all this out like in a week or so, and I'm looking at it and I'm like we pulled so a full truck is like $700 to fill it up, and it don't take that long. And then we pulled 16 and a half loads out of this warehouse, and he's got another one for me. So that just that one job alone was like 10 grand in revenue.
Yeah.
Which is probably our biggest junk job to date. Some of the moves the long distance moves are super expensive.
Yeah.
But dude, it's 95 degrees outside and the guys are
working
8 hours of picking shit up, putting it down, picking shit up, putting it down. It's labor intensive.
Yeah.
So when I do an interview and I see this guy is got soft pink hands and he looks like chewed bubble gum, I'm like, I'll call you. If a dude comes in and I ask him the question, is you ever played sports? That's one of my questions, right?
Yeah.
You ever play any sports? He's like, oh yeah, I played basketball, played football, or I did wrestling. I know he's got grit. I'll ask him, how long did you play sports for? He's like, oh, I played all through high school, football. I was like, all right, this motherfucker's got grit.
Yeah.
I asked this guy, you ever play sports? He's like, no, I was into computers. I'm like, good luck. Because I'll train a guy, and it'll be summertime. They go out on the truck. It's 95 degrees, and they're like, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
And then they spent all the time training them.
Yeah.
And it's not and moving is got some, it's a little technical where you got equipment to move shit and do it safely and not break shit. So there is some, when guys leave or they quit, you lose a lot of experience. And it takes the newer guys, you take them to a move, they're kind of lost in the sauce until
that makes sense.
A good solid 2 weeks until they know, the precedence of the move and TTPs and SOPs and how we do shit.
Yeah.
But the trucks, I run it just like the service. Go do the truck inspection checklist every morning. Every job they do, you guys got to do this much marketing. Put out a yard sign.
That's cool.
Every week, what you got to do, check fluids, check air pressures,
Yeah.
I got telematics in the truck where you can see the guys driving it. They pick up their cell phone, and the fucking thing goes ding, 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 and I get an alert driving with a cell phone. There's a lot to it. It'll be something pretty massive. There's some of the franchises that are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The hardest part with this location is I own Panama City too.
Okay.
Technically, but I can't compete because they got smaller moving franchises over there, my competitors, and they can give a better price because 2 men in a truck is in every city. Okay. And then I own Destin and Panama City. So if I give a quote in Panama City, it's already an extra $700 on top just for me to drive there. Yeah. So they just laugh me out of there.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to really dial in some long distance stuff, and there's a really good 20% margin in there.
Nice.
But I love the Navy. I do miss it. I do miss the boys.
Yeah.
I do miss doing the Chiefs mess thing. Because when you're a business owner, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
But I dig it.
Nice. Well, being in this area, you were saying earlier, around you, there's a decent amount of people that you were in the Navy with and whatnot. But do you get much time?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that was part of the reason. Well, when I was in the underwater LCPO from 2018 to 2020, me and Christy loved it down here so much. We were like, let's come back here and retire.
Yeah. And
so, that was one of the hard things of a transition. If you retire in Virginia Beach, you're in your house. You're going to probably find a job, right? But we severed all ties during the transition and come down here, and that was very fucking challenging.
Yeah.
But I was the point of your question, we love it down here. Like I said, we got Mike Lentz across the street, Matt Strawn, Sam Crumbaugh, Joe Severino. Yeah. I found Tony Tubolino the other day. Actually, I wanted to go do a moving estimate. He opened the door. It was him. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? We did a move for him. I moved a couple of EOD guys.
Nice.
And the memorial every year. You know, that's something I love to go to the auction, and
Cool.
all the bros come in town, and just you run into EOD guys at the store.
Yeah.
You know, and we got a thread here. We play poker occasionally.
Nice.
You know, with some other EOD guys from Panama City, and they come here, and it's great.
That's awesome.
It's just fucking Virginia Beach is so large. Yeah, you occasionally run into one of your dudes, but like here it's more consistent.
Yeah.
And then that EOD memorial and the ball and the auction is every year is special to me, and I like to do that. You know.
Yeah. That's I still haven't made it down for a memorial. Just like, always been something's going on with work, and I'm here or there, whatever. But
I went this year, and it was the first time they didn't add any new names to the wall.
Yeah.
You know, since I don't know if that was the case last year, but this is the first one I ever been to where none of the services put a new name on the wall. And then the ball, like I went to the ball 10 years ago, and I was like, this sucks, I'll never come back, because it was just so corporate. The one I went to last time, I was very, very pleased with.
Nice.
They have the dude, Joey, who was the Marine EOD guy that lost both his legs, who's a Fox News contributor.
Yeah.
He was the guest of honor, the guest speaker. And he just totally self-deprecated himself. He's like, obviously I'm a slick bomb. I blew my legs off. It was great.
That's awesome.
It was real chill.
Nice.
Yep. And then we went out to AJ's afterwards, and I was like totally feeling my age. It was just shoulder to shoulder. I'm hot as fuck. I'm like, this kind of sucks. I had one beer, and I'm like, I'm fucking out.
Yeah.
It's fucking.
Starting to get grumpy, and you're like, all right, I'm that dude now. Nice.
But no, I appreciate inviting me to speak on your podcast. I think it's a great thing. I love listening to it. I love listening to the dudes that I can relate with, and they tell stories about other guys that I know.
Yeah.
And I'm driving, I'm drinking my coffee, and it just puts a smile on my face. Or I love hearing the EOD, the older dudes or EOD at a time we had no idea of any concept or insight into.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's a lot of older dudes you should definitely, I know you said you're going to try and get Roy Hunt after he retires.
Yeah.
I'm sure that dude's fucking the best Master Chief E5 I ever met.
It took a second.
Because he retired Master Chief, but now he just works at 2-2 and he just loves being E5 again.
Yep.
Just washing the boats. Just hilarious.
That's funny.
But, yeah, man. Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Fucking, I dig it.
Will do. Yeah.
Try and get some of the, Roy Hunt would probably be a good dude to talk to ask who are some of the other guys that, did actual MCM, dove on Lugum mines and shit during the first Persian Gulf War. Like diving at night, diving in, current, diving with the 2 Alpha.
I talked to, before I left, I talked to Justin Sheeran, and he actually sat down and gave me a list. And now that I'm back from deployment, I got to start going through that again. But literally wrote down like a bunch of names and like what they were, like things that they did, whether it was diving on mines or the different types of things, and probably like 20 names of old dudes that did different things. I would start reaching out to them. And
just think about when we do training, we're like, oh, the Manta's super sensitive. Like these dudes RTB these Manas.
Yeah. That's because of this and some of the things. Right before we went on deployment, I talked to the MCM team, and I was like, hey, if I can get one of those guys to come in and talk to you about what it's like to actually dive in a minefield and dive on mines, would you guys want to do that? And they were like, absolutely. So I set that up, and like super valuable to hear that kind of stuff. Like, hey, we haven't done this in a long time, so we all we think that it's like this crazy, it's not like a normal thing, but then you hear like, yeah, we dove on like between his team and his det and another det, like 64 mines, and placed charges, raised to a beach, some of them, like, and nobody died. Like, okay, it's possible. Sometimes you need to hear those stories that, hey, it's a possibility. You can do this.
Yeah. The one of the things we did when I was on my MCM platoon 1212, back in the day, the Beltway tour. Remember that verbiage of going to all the intel agencies? Mm-hmm. Well, we did a Beltway tour that was like mostly MCM focused. Yeah. Like when we went detective, and we saw the building, the $1 million building that they built to low mu shit, and where all the Mark 80 series tools get low mu'd, and how they characterize the shark navs. Like, that's cool. Dudes don't know that shit. Yeah. Or thinking that this aluminum beaner is going to be low mu'd, but it won't because of that little metal spring in there. But then, that's why we had all the brass clips. So there's this complete disconnect with what's actually real with MCM that can be done, and then like, okay, that's kind of pigeonholed up in detective and in the pubs, and then we have all the equipment that's being ordered for the MCM platoon by the ladies that run TOA or whatever the fuck it's called now, and then the MCM platoons, assuming that this stuff that's coming from TOA, from these people who are not actually the SMEs, they're just filling out the line items and sending it to the platoon. Yeah. And people are thinking that this is the appropriate equipment. Yeah. There's a huge disconnect between equipment, logistics, tactics, experience. Yep. And just the severity of the difficulty. Yeah. To get it done. So it's just like there needs a. Yeah, like we did the Beltway tour, and we went detective, and we saw that, and then we went to Office of Naval Intelligence, and they took us down to the basement and showed us some shit. I was like, this is legit and not legit at the same time. Yeah. This thing looks like a fucking Ferrari. You're like, it does what? Right? Like, that was some of the issues we had at, underwater. Yeah. Like when I was the LCP over there, like all the, we're training, we're doing these, remote procedures on all the mines and all these pulling out exploders on torpedoes and all that kind of stuff. And there's definitely a place for it because it's a more technical drill, a larger aspect, more technical, more difficult, challenging drill. And then we need our Navy EOD operators, be more problem solving and more on their feet. But like when I was up there, I'm looking at these mines and I'm like, man, these things are the same mines that I trained on 20 years ago, and these are the same mines my dad trained on 40 years ago. And like I kind of went on a hunt to try and figure out how we could get some more ordnance. Find it. Like I found some place out in Nevada, they had fucking mines in a fucking bunker somewhere, and he sent me a list of all this shit, and I'm just going through it trying to figure out like these things are just falling apart. Yeah. And some of them are not even relevant anymore. Like some of the ordnance is not relevant, but you're not training necessarily to the relevant of the shape, but it's the technique and the problem solving, like I said. But like I don't know, it was very difficult to try and even if we got new stuff, it's classified. Right. And then you can't just have it out in the open air out at the Area 8 area, Yeah. It's very challenging. We had like a tent thing out there that we could put secret shapes in, but like then it's like, okay, if we get a new shape, is there even an RSP to train on? Right. And especially at the schoolhouse, you have to have something set that you can grade off of if you're going to do that. So yeah, so that was a big challenge, and I was unsuccessful at finding some new shit. I mean, we definitely made some positive improvement around there, with the classroom and some training areas and making Area 8 a little bit better with, physical structures and lightning protection and shit like that. And But underwater was pretty rough that 2 years just because of the events that happened when I was there of just Hurricane Michael came and just fucked up Panama City. And then the training department was trying to figure out what are we going to do with these students that they had this huge backlog. It's like, okay, we'll put them through EOD school, then we'll send them back to dive school, they'll get qualified, then they'll come back to underwater area 8 where they can actually do the curriculum. They had some massive problems that they had to figure out. And then we get hit with COVID, you know, and it was just like, fuck. It was just...
It's just a lot.
Because Derek Davis, you know, has been there forever. He's finally retiring.
Yeah.
But I was just like talking to him, and he's like, man, because he was a fucking instructor when I was coming through.
Yeah.
Right? When he was twin pin active duty. So now he's a GS, and we're working together. I'm the LCPO. And I'm like, man, this is just a nightmare. And he's like, dude, this is just... It's never been like this before. It's like we got hit with 2 double whammies, you know, the same year.
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts, but good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I guess we should just end on one more Det Marianas story.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so now I told you I've been to FDM quite a few times. So ComNav Mar, they're like, hey, we want to send you up there with the training officer because we want to put new targets on there for the pilots to bomb, you know, new shit. Because all they had on there was like some Connex boxes.
Yeah.
That were just zipped through with the 20 millimeter gouges, just holes shot through it and shit. And so, so usually what they would do is they would contract this helicopter pilot who was a tourist helicopter pilot in Saipan to fly us up there. So I would fly ComAir to Saipan, right? And then the Navy would contract a helicopter pilot, this dude named Rufus, to fly us to FDM and drop us off.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll actually tell 2 stories around this guy, Rufus. So he was a white dude. His dad was a helicopter pilot. And he married this Filipino chick, and they lived in Guam. And you know how the derogatory term for white dudes from Chamorros is howlies in Hawaiians? So he married a Filipino chick, so he called his children jalapenos. Right? So he told me that. I was just dying. Anyway, so the first time I worked with this guy, Rufus, he takes me and this dude, Scott, up, who is another scientist, and just me and him just walking him around the island so he doesn't step on any ordnance, and he's taking pictures of these fucking birds, right? We're just walking around the island, and he's just getting to get a total boner just taking pictures of these fucking stupid birds, right? And I'm just escorting them, and like, so Rufus dropped us off in the morning, and he went back to Saipan. He's like, all right, I'm going to pick you guys up at, 3 o'clock or whatever the hard time was. It's just me, EOD-1 Sabo, and this scientist with this camera taking pictures of these birds. And so this storm rolls in, and I'm like, Scott, this guy's name was Scott. I'm like, hey man, there's no way that this civilian helicopter dude is coming to get us. First of all, he's got no instrumentation other than a compass, right? He's just flying visually because he's a tourist helicopter. And this huge storm was coming in. And this storm was coming in. I'm like, hey man, Scott, so let's go shelter up. I'm like, there's this Connex box, got bullet holes all through it. Right? So we go in there and fucking sit on the chairs. And like, it's the only kind of shelter, rain's just dripping on us, but we're not just getting blasted by the wind and shit. And I'm like, all right, Scott, well, get ready for a long night, buddy. Cause all I got is I pulled out some beef jerky. And then I had like a power bar and I had 2 Miller Lights. And I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and ration up the supplies. Right? And so I got this picture of me and him sitting in these fucking camp chairs in this Connex box with the holes of rain dripping on us, drinking a beer, and we're like both sharing the beef jerky. Right? That's awesome. And I'm like, and all of a sudden I hear, and I'm like, no way. that cannot be him. And I fucking go out and I'm like, Rufus, I'm like, no shit, he's here. And so there was only one spot on the island that he could land because it was either overhead veg or it was an impact range.
Yep.
Right. So there was this one side, one like peak on the windward side that he could land. And we were like 150 yards away from that. And I'm like, Scott, we got to go now. This is a helicopter. He's here. I can't believe it. So we're running, and I see Rufus is landing, and I see the look in his eye. And he's like, he's got the headphones on, the helicopter. He's like, get it, right, yelling at me. And I'm like, Scott, come on. I jump into the front seat. I throw the headphones on. I'm like, Rufus, thanks, dude. I didn't think for a second you were coming back to get me. He's like, I got you, bro. And he's like, he tries to like take off. And like, he like pushes back down, and he was like, fuck. I could hear him like say it under his breath, but it came through the radio, right through the comm set. He's like, I'm going to try something. I'm like, all right, dude, sounds good. So he fucking hovers, and he's like, I got to come off this ledge to get enough airspeed so we can, get lift. And I'm like, I'm not a pilot, but okay. So he literally like scoots up to the edge, and like we fall off this edge to get some airspeed.
Yeah.
And then climb out of it, and he takes us back to Saipan.
Dude.
Right? So that was the first time I met Rufus, and then I worked with him like progressively over the years. And so finally getting to the story. So finally getting to this story. So the ComNav Mar hires the guy to give us some, fly us out there. And then the plan was I was going to call Ian. He was back at Det Mari. And I was going to call him on the Iridium on the sat phone, and he was going to load up the demo, whatever I requested, because we were doing range clearance, and then they were going to fly in the targets, and then we were going to place them. Right? Yeah. They're like, hey, we want to put targets here. I mean, we could have put the targets anywhere, but we turned it into a demo opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
You don't turn down work. So I fucking bust out the sat phone, you rotate the thing, stick it up, you fucking 00697, whatever the password is on every Iridium sat phone, right? Star 00697, area code number. And I call Ian, I'm like, all right, dude, so we need I need like 400 pounds of C and like 2,000 feet of det cord and 10 caps, time fuse, whatever, and a fucking case of ice cold beer. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, and it better be on that fucking helicopter. And I fucking hung up on him, right? And so he is escorting it, right? And he brings it, and sure as shit, and fucking beer's on there.
That's awesome.
And so he told me that like he's flying, and like, how like pilots and officers need to get their check ride every now and then so they can keep their flight pay, or just like we do dives and shit like that. He said he was on there, and he had like a guy sitting crew, and he was just riding, looking out the crew door because he was getting his flight check. And he kind of looks back at Ian, and he sees that the soft cooler, like water's running out of it. And like he looks at the cooler, he does like a double take, and he looks at Ian, like Ian kind of smirks. And he's just like, Ian told me like under his breath, the guy could be like, you motherfuckers. Right? And so anyways, we put the beer aside, we get all the demo, and the beer comes. And then so we fucking do the range clearance, and then Rufus comes to pick us up, and we fucking pop smoke, right? We had two dual time trains because we don't want to come back to the island, right? And so we fucking get in the bird, and like, Rufus, you mind if we drink these beers? He's like, hell yeah, fucking we're the tourist helicopter. As long as you're in the back seat, drink beers, right? And so fucking we're flying around the island. We're at 10,000 feet, for rogue fragments. And all that shit, and fucking the whole island cooks off.
That's awesome.
We're in a helicopter from a distance, drinking beers, and fucking Rufus is like, holy shit. And I'm like, yeah. And so then, I worked with Rufus so many times, like we finished the job up so early, and fucking like they had some more time. I was like, hey Rufus, I'm like, can I fly this helicopter tomorrow? He's like, Yeah. He's like, be here at 8 o'clock. And me and Brian Fitzgerald fucking jumped in the helicopter.
Dude, that's awesome.
And we were doing touch and goes on Tinian runway where the Enola Gay took off to fucking
That is legit.
to bomb Japan. Yeah, we probably flew the helicopter like 2 hours each.
That is awesome.
And like doors are off, flying around, looking down at Saipan, and he's like scary hard.
Yeah.
Like so much shit is going on in the helicopter. And like shit's starting to like peel over. I'm like, Rufus, you got it. He's like, I got it. But it was that one time the Navy paid for my helicopter lessons.
That is awesome. You're not going to get that just anywhere.
No.
Nice.
No.
Yeah.
It's just, Navy was such a wonderful thing, part of my life. And I tell some of these stories and other dudes won't even believe it, but it's just like shit happened. And then like, I didn't even go into the Iraq, Afghanistan shit, but it was just, I got blessed with those deployments too, you know, and luckily didn't get wounded, you know, or killed, you know, by the grace of God. But I'm just so thankful for the career I had, the people I met, the things I got to do and see, and now this opportunity with running a business. Yeah. I couldn't be more blessed.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing, telling your stories. That's
appreciate
some good stuff.
Appreciate these fucking barley pops.
All right.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.